That's a very important thing, and unfortunately, I think that's something that kind of gets forgotten when we get to these election cycles. It's really about these kids and about these schools, and thankfully, even though the spotlight's been focused on all the schools and everything going on with the board for the past few months for, unfortunately, some negative reasons, it's good that we're looking now, and it's good that everyone's paying attention to what's going on with the Board of Education, and we are very happy and honored to have joining us in studio another one of your candidates for Board of Education. She is actually running unopposed for District 7, and that is Patti Bounds. Patti, welcome to the Rude Awakening.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me this morning. We're excited
absolutely.
to be here.
Well, we're excited to have you in here, and the neat thing is, of course, as we mentioned, you're running unopposed, but that doesn't mean your campaign stops. You're taking the time now to go out and meet everybody and talk to people and get a good feel of what people are saying and people are talking about right now out in District 7, right?
Exactly. I've taken this spring break to go out and to canvass neighborhoods, and we will be in 2 or 3 neighborhoods in the Halls area today, going door to door, meeting the voters and finding out their concerns and listening to them.
Mm-hmm. So what are you hearing from a lot of the folks out there? What are some of their concerns? What are some of their questions that they have? What are some of the things that they're really focusing on right now?
Well, when we began going door to door in January during those very cold days, my most frequently asked questions are about Dr. McIntyre and about Common Core, and that has been the focus of the community's questions to me.
Sure.
So.
Now you were a teacher for 23 years, right?
I'm currently teaching at Bricky McLeod. I have taught for 23 years, and I'm very fortunate because District 7 encompasses Halls and Powell, and I taught for 13 years at Powell Elementary, first grade, and now I'm currently teaching at Bricky kindergarten. So, and all 4 of our adult children graduated from Powell High School.
So, as a teacher, you've been right, as it were, you're right on the front lines, as it were, as to all the discussion going on, everything from park testing to the standardized testing to the evaluations. What has been your experience with all that?
Well, that's one of the reasons that when we took time over the Christmas break to evaluate running in this election, that was some of the concerns, because I've implemented Common Core for the last 3 years. I've given the tripod survey that's kind of controversial with parents. We've heard a lot about for the past 2 years. I'm currently a lead teacher for Knox County, so I am not only being evaluated by the team model and the rubric, but I'm evaluating teachers and my peers as well at Bricky McLeod. So all of those things and watching what was going on before the board, I felt like that I could bring my educational knowledge and classroom experience to the board to help resolve some of these issues.
From what you've seen, do you think that these tests and everything that we've heard about, from tripod surveys and the evaluations and the rubrics and everything, do you think that these are positive things in the way they're being done right now? Do you think they could have been implemented better, or do you think there needs to be a change to some of these things to make them a little more focused toward actually making the educational experience better for our kids?
I think one of the things that has complicated the issue is that we in Knox County began to implement all of these kind of around the same time. So we like to use the word differentiation in education.
Sure.
But it's very hard to differentiate between Common Core, team, Apex, rubric, the park.
Yeah.
All of those things kind of came into being at the same time. That's a lot of change.
Sure.
My experience is with kindergarten and 5-year-olds, and I am doing a lot of testing. Last week, before we broke for spring break, was primarily testing my 5-year-olds in my kindergarten classroom.
Really? Do you think now? And we've heard about this from other teachers. Do you think, because you've spent your 2+ decades now teaching kids in kindergarten and first grade and the younger kids, do you think it makes a lot of sense to ask a kindergartner to evaluate a teacher that's not even his teacher?
That's probably where my strongest opposition is. I am not in favor of the tripod survey at all for any age, especially with young children, and I know that Knox County revisited that. And while I gave it in the fall, I did not have to give it 2 weeks ago or a week ago, whenever it was given.
Sure.
Most recently to the kindergarten class. So they really don't understand. From my perspective, having given the test to kindergarten and second graders, they do not understand the test or the questions being asked of them.
Sure. Now, since you've been in teaching for over 20 years, looking at how you taught 20 years ago to how you teach today, are teachers being allowed to actually teach anymore, or is it getting to the point where it's follow this and next class, follow this, next year of classes, follow this, next year of classes?
I've taught for a long time, and I've seen a lot of change. As I said the other night, I've taught under 5 superintendents, but no greater change than in the last 5 years in the classroom. It has been phenomenal. Some of it for good, some of it, maybe not. But I think we have moved more in that direction.
Do you think you're going to see? Do you think that we're going to see a big shift at the end of this election cycle as far as the school board goes? And here's the big hard question we've asked a lot of people: if that shift changes, do you think that we're going to see a change in the superintendent's position?
That I can't answer. I do think we have the possibility to see a very different looking board of education. There are 5 races up to be determined, and that can make a big difference. We didn't get into the race as a referendum on Dr. McIntyre. Depending on the outcome of this election and how things play out, I mean, in the future, I would love to be on the board when we look for a new superintendent.
Sure.
I would like to have a say in that.
Sure. The current system, as it seems, does the superintendent here in Knox County work for the board, or does the board work for the superintendent?
I believe that was one of the questions on one of the surveys I've done for either the League of Women Voters or the Metro Pulse. And it is my understanding that the superintendent is supposed to work for the Board of Education.
Is that the way it's happening, or has been happening? Because public perception is that no.
Public perception is to the contrary.
Is that the board answers to Dr. McIntyre?
Yes, that is the public perception.
Is that kind of how, as teachers, you all see some of the things happening as well? Does it seem like the board really stands up, or has stood up for y'all, or does it seem like whatever the superintendent has said, the board kind of just follows along willingly with it?
I think they've given it a lot of consideration, I would hope. I think he has set forth his strategic plans and over the course of his administration, and to some extent the board has felt like those plans were valuable to the schools and the community and followed along.
Sure. What are your feelings on a group like the Parthenon that we just saw last week, and some of their suggestions as to how to make education better in Knox County?
I think as we've seen it play out, that a lot of the suggestions they made probably are not the best for the children, which is where our primary focus should be,
Sure.
or the best for our community. I know that group has done presentations in other areas. I've read information that sometimes it looks very similar from city to city where they make their recommendations. So I don't think Knox County has embraced their findings.
Yeah. We have a question coming from our chat room right now, wanting to know if you can address what your feelings are on the park testing.
Knox County did try to prepare us for this by giving us samples and moving us in that direction. Again, Knox County likes to use the word differentiation, but I think it looks very different at a kindergarten level versus a high school level. And I'm not sure that kindergarten is the best place for PARCC testing. They are still very concrete learners, and I'm not sure how developmentally appropriate it is for a 5-year-old. I would have to see it firsthand.
Sure. We're talking with Patti Bounds, and Patti is she's running for District 7 for the Board of Education seat there. She's running unopposed, but that doesn't mean she's not getting out and meeting everybody and talking to everybody in District 7, finding out what their wants and their needs are. We've actually got a question coming up on the phone lines for you here. We're going to take a quick break, though. But when we get back, we're going to talk some more with Patti Bounds. And if you've got a question for her, there's a couple questions popping in on the text box as well. We will share those with you and get Patti's answers on those. But you need to check out Patti Bounds. You can find her online, pattibounds.com, PattiBounds, PattiBounds.com. Office. I'm very upset.
And nap time doesn't exist anymore in kindergarten.
They're not learning
No.
about nap time?
No, they don't have time for nap time. They're too busy taking tests.
Evaluations for the teachers?
There's no evaluation during nap time.
They could evaluate nap time. Like, how was your nap time? 1 through 5.
There's no money tied to nap time. Stop it. It doesn't count.
Well, I'm going to call the Department of Education. There needs to be funding for testing nap time.
Had a PowerPoint. It said, number 1, no nap time.
That's the way. Some nap times are more profitable than other nap times.
We're talking. Now, this is all our goofy little mess. Don't attribute any of this to Miss Bounds. We're talking with Patti Bounds. She's running for the seat in District 7. She's running unopposed, but the cool thing is she's still coming out here doing things like this. She's spending a couple minutes with us this morning. I'm sure she's now going, why did I come do this? But no, she's getting out here, meeting everybody, talking to people, and finding out what really people in District 7 want to talk about. And surprisingly, they were talking about things like what's going on with the current board and things like Parthenon and the tests and the evaluations and of course, the superintendent. And we got a question right now, actually, from Jennifer. If you've got a question, 865-243-TALK, 243-8255. Good morning, Jennifer. You're on The Rude Awakening with Patti Bounds.
Good morning. Hi, Patti. This is Jennifer with Speak. I know we've met recently. I don't actually have a question for you. I actually have more of a statement with what you were saying about evaluations and the SAT-10 test. I just want to put out there what actually has happened with my daughter. She has recently been discovered that she has a learning disability in reading, which is actually dyslexia, but Knox County doesn't recognize dyslexia. They call it a learning disability in reading. Her SAT-10 score in April of last year in first grade, she did horribly on it. Now, all that was going to show was that she had a horrible teacher last year, which was the actual complete opposite of what she had. She probably had one of the best teachers in Knox County last year who worked every day to help Leah and figure out why Leah was struggling with reading. Every single day. And all that SAT-10 test showed was that she had a bad teacher. That's what her teacher was evaluated on, not that she was working with her every day. And just for the record, because of all of this stuff that's going on with Knox County, that teacher no longer is employed with Knox County. She went to a different county. And I think that's really sad how we're losing so many teachers because of this.
Well, I appreciate your
Thank you, Jennifer.
calling in this morning, Jennifer, and especially speaking out as a parent concerning your daughter and what you see as it related to her teacher. I know personally last year I received a student from another school towards the end of the year, and I had no impact on her learning basically because she came to my classroom just a few weeks before the STAT-10 testing. However, I was tested over that child's learning, and when I received her, she, at the end of the kindergarten school year, could not even write her name. So those kind of things do exist in the system that we're currently in.
You got a question here, someone asking in the text box, and thank you for that call, Jennifer. We appreciate it. Very simply, are you for Common Core?
You know, I've been implementing Common Core in my classroom, and I think it's, I'm glad to see some space that the legislature's given us to allow parents in the community to review Common Core. Mm-hmm. I can only speak to it primarily from where I've been in the classroom with a kindergarten class.
Sure.
It's a very, and people want to come down good or bad. It's a very broad kind of roadmap to where students are supposed to
Sure.
travel over the course of their educational career. How it's implemented, the text that we're using, the companies that are promoting it, and of course a lot of companies came out and attacked, Common Core.
Sure.
Standards included on their text. So there's a lot. It's a very complex issue. I'm not trying to dodge the question.
Sure,
it's
I
just
understand.
a very complex issue. But I'm glad that parents have become involved, because I am very pro parents being involved, and I like to partner with parents in my
Sure.
classroom and now on a larger scale.
But you are glad that they're now taking a little break to kind of step back and quit ramrodding everything through and taking a breather for a second, saying, let's look at everything before we say this is what it is finally.
There's a chance to implement what's already been established by the state with the reading and the math, and there's time to move on with the science and social studies.
Sure. We got another question here, Brody, wanting to know, how do you feel about a Board of Education that's made up of basically half non-educators voted on by people and half educators voted onto the board, kind of like two branches of Congress?
That's a very interesting proposal that I had not thought about before. I know that when I began to contemplate this race, school board race, that was one of the things that concerned me, was that there was not a current person from the field of education. Now, I understand Mr. McMillan has a lot of classroom experience, but the system has changed so in the last 5 years that I was just really amazed that there was not someone.
7,000 high school students